Hey there, and welcome back to Podcasting for Educators, or just welcome if this is your first time tuning in. Today, I want to talk all about having a workflow that works for you when it comes to producing your podcast episodes each and every week. I want you to take a minute and try something. If you go into your favorite podcasting app and you search for a podcast that's within your same niche, find a podcast that fits in that category and take a look at when their latest episode was released. And then look at when the episode before that was released, and the one before that, and the one before that, and so on. And do that for a few different shows that are within the same niche as you are. And I think you might be really, really surprised to find out how many podcasts are not even active anymore. Maybe they haven't released an episode in weeks or months or even a year. I firmly believe that having some sort of system for your podcast is so crucial to keep up with your show. If you haven't heard of the term podfade, it starts when podcast hosts miss like a week here and there, and slowly but surely there becomes bigger gaps in the time that they release episodes. And this happens for a lot of different reasons. They might be doing everything by themselves, and their podcast kind of just gets pushed to the side because they don't have enough time, they're not planning ahead, and they're not planning their podcast like they are the rest of their business. And then they're just scrambling week to week to get episodes out. Or maybe they don't have systems put in place to keep themselves organized and streamline all of the tasks that come with producing a podcast. And maybe you're thinking, well, shoot, that's me. I'm scrambling week to week. I'm recording my episodes the night before they go live. Then this episode is especially for you. Because if you see your show as a priority for connecting with your audience, which I'm sure that you do, then you have to create a process that works for you. And it needs to be one that's simple and repeatable week after week. So I'm going to go over all of the big pieces of creating and producing a podcast episode and really looking at ways that you can streamline and organize things so that the whole process is smoother for you and so that your show doesn't end up in the graveyard of podcasts like so many others. Welcome to Podcasting for Educators, the podcast that helps TPT authors and other online educators launch and grow their show. I'm Sarah, former elementary school teacher turned podcast manager, and I'm on a mission to help you get your podcast out and into the ears of those who need it most. Busy teachers, counselors, literacy specialists, SLPs, parents, and everyone in between. Each week, we'll cover quick tips, strategies, and podcast industry updates so that you can be on top of your podcasting game and gain some new customers along the way. Are you ready? Let's get to it. Okay, so there's kind of 4 different pieces of putting together a podcast episode. So you've got your planning piece, your recording, your producing of the episode, and then sharing or promoting your episode. So let's start with that planning piece. So any good planning starts with some solid organization. And if you are an educator or a former educator, then I am sure that you love yourself some organization. Actually, I feel like that might be a stereotype of teachers. So if you are the kind of teacher who is the total opposite of that, then hey, this is extra good for you. So I love to organize my Google Drive for my podcast episodes and really anything related to my business. You might use Dropbox, and that's fine too. They work the same way. So if you haven't already set up a nice organized Google Drive for your podcast, I suggest that you do that. It's going to make your life a lot easier. So what I recommend doing is within your Google Drive, have a folder for only things related to your podcast. Within that main folder, create a folder for each of your episodes, and you can just have it labeled as episode 12 or whatever the episode number is. And then within that folder, you will include your audio and your audio clips and anything else that you might need for that episode. I think it's good to have these things handy so that if you ever want to go back and pull any kind of clips or share the audio with anybody, you have that all in one nice organized place. Then I think it's great to have kind of a template that you can use over and over and over again as an outline for your episodes. And really, I'm talking more about solo episodes here. I don't really think that you need an outline per se for guest episodes. But for your solo episodes, you can create a Google Doc, and you might already have something like this set up, but create a Google Doc that you can copy and put in each of your episode folders when you're ready to plan out that episode. And I'll give you an example of what I like to use for my outlines. So you can have the episode number and the title. You can put the air date, the date that the episode's going to go live below that, and then have a spot for you to type yourself an intro for that episode, your main talking points that you want to cover, a section for you to list out any kind of resources that you want to make sure that you mention in the episode, like something from your TPT store or a link to your membership or a book that you love that you really want to recommend to your listeners. Whatever it is, go ahead and list it out. It might seem obvious, but once you hit that record button and you start talking, you might lose track and totally forget what you wanted to mention in the first place. So like I said, you want to have that outline structure in each of those episode folders. If you have a VA, this is a really great task for them to do. You could have them go ahead and pre-set up all of your episode folders, or maybe go in once a month and do it for the upcoming month, so that when you go in there, you're going to have your episode outline ready for you with the episode number and the air date, and it's just one less thing that you have to do before you start recording. Okay, so continuing with the theme of organization, the second thing I want to touch on is that I absolutely recommend that you have some sort of project management tool. I'm always really surprised when I meet business owners who have really successful and established businesses, and they're still not using a project management tool. And honestly, I'm more impressed than anything because I don't know how they keep track of everything. But having a project management tool is a really easy way to have everything that has to do with your business in one place, and you can have a separate area for your podcast. So, I mean, I'm sure that you're familiar with a lot of these, but I'd say some of the popular ones are Trello, Monday, ClickUp, Asana. A lot of these you can start on their free plan to make sure that you like it, and then you can always upgrade to get more of their higher end features. I've used Trello for the longest time, and I'm actually in the process of switching to ClickUp just because there's so many more possibilities in terms of automations and just making my life a whole lot easier. So I am very excited for that change. I'll let you know how it goes once I'm all moved over there. It's definitely a learning process. But if you don't have anything in place and you really don't have the time or the mental energy to learn a new project management tool right now, then I recommend starting with Trello because it is super, super easy, very user-friendly, and not much of a learning curve. So whatever you're using, you want to have a checklist for every episode that you can just duplicate for every single week. And depending on the tool that you're using, you might be able to set up an automation so that every single week it automatically creates this checklist for you for your upcoming episodes, and you don't even have to duplicate it yourself. So within that checklist, do a brain dump of everything that you do with your podcast episodes. So outline, record, edit, write show notes, create a post for Instagram, create an audiogram, create Pinterest pins, whatever it is. Have it all in one checklist that you can use over and over again. And so it's called different things depending on which tool you use, but on Trello, every episode has its own card. And so on that card, you would have your checklist that I just mentioned. And then in the description field for that episode, you can go ahead and link anything that you're going to need to do to produce or to record that episode. So you could have a link to your Google Drive for your podcast, a link to your Canva templates for your podcast, anything that you're going to consistently use for that episode. And then just duplicate, duplicate, duplicate so that when you pull up that card for this specific episode that you're working on, everything is in one place. You don't have to go into your browser and pull up a million different tabs. You can just click on it through your project management tool. And then in that description field for each episode, like where you have all the links that I talked about, you could also include like a draft of your show notes, a draft of an episode description, list out any resources that you want to make sure to include in your show notes. So again, everything is in one place. I will include a link to a screenshot of what one of my Trello cards looks like for one of my episodes, so you can kind of have a better visual for what I'm trying to explain here. And that will be at podcastingforeducators.com/episode 12. Okay, so we've talked a bit about the organization piece, about organizing your Google Drive or your Dropbox, and organizing your project management tool to have a space for your podcast. Now let's look at the actual recording. So if you have listened to this podcast before, you may have heard me talking about, or some of my guests talking about, batch recording. And if you don't know what batch recording is, essentially it's when you sit down and you record several episodes in one sitting or in one day and get them all out of the way. So what a lot of my clients will do is between the span of like 1 to 2 days, they will usually at the end of the month batch record all of their episodes for the upcoming month, so that they just have to do it once and then they hand everything off to me and my team and they don't have to worry about it again until the next month. So I highly encourage batch recording. I just think it's a great way to save you time, just like anything else that you batch in your life. If you sit down and you're in that zone of, okay, I'm going to do this, I'm going to record these episodes, you're in that headspace and you get it done, rather than, recording one episode on Monday and then having to do it again the following Monday and then the following Monday and then the following Monday, it tends to drag things out, whereas you can just get it all done and move on. And if you're doing your podcast all by yourself and you're producing it by yourself too, then you could consider not only batching your recording, but batching all of the tasks that you have to do for each episode as well. So an example of this could be maybe on the last Monday of every month, you record your episodes for the upcoming month. And then on every Friday, you do all of the tasks for the following week's episode. Or if you really wanted to knock it out, the first or the last Friday of every month, do all of the tasks for the upcoming month's episodes. And by tasks, I mean like sit down and write all of the show notes, write all of your social media posts. So you're doing your batch recording one day, and then you're doing your batch kind of copywriting, uploading, and scheduling another day. Now, I could sit here all day and encourage you to batch record, but you need to really find a batching schedule that works for you, because I know that not everybody can sit down and record 4 episodes in one sitting. I know that that's not possible for everybody. We all work differently, so you do have to do what works for you and do a little bit of experimentation to figure that out. But I do think that some sort of batching can really help you stay on track. So maybe if you can't do a month's worth of episodes in one day, split it up into 2 days or 3 days. But the overall theme here is to record several episodes together so that you can be in that same headspace. You can tell yourself, okay, this is the day that I'm recording. I'm going to get there mentally, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to do it. And I promise you, if you sit down and batch several episodes, you are going to feel so amazing when you're done. And kind of on that same theme of batching, a quick little pro tip for you. If you have guests on your show, I always think it's a great idea to record an intro for your guest after you've actually done the interview with them, rather than introducing them while they're on the line with you, because sometimes an interview goes in a different direction than you think it's going to. And so if you record an intro after the interview is done, you'll really be able to give specifics to your listeners about what's to come on this episode. But here's the thing. You need to go ahead and record it right when you finish your interview, because what a lot of people do, and I've done this once and I will never do it again, is people will do an interview and then they'll get off of the interview and say, oh, I'll record the intro tomorrow. Do they record it tomorrow? No. I've been guilty of this too. And so then it's just like one more thing that's circling over your head. So When you're done doing an interview, put those headphones back on and get that intro done. And it's one less thing that you have to worry about. All right, next up is show notes. So if you have show notes on your website, which I hope that you do, whatever you use for your website, whether it's Squarespace or WordPress or Kajabi, when you go in to create a new post for a new episode, go to your last post, copy the entire thing, go to add a new post, paste it, and then plug and play for your latest episodes so that you have a set structure on your show notes page that you can just rinse and repeat week after week. Of course, the content's going to be different and the graphics are going to be different and it's going to be fresh every single week, but the structure, the bones of it should be the same so that it's really easy for you to just go in there and tweak it for that week's episode. After you create your show notes for the episode that you're working on, I recommend keeping a running Google Doc of a list of each of your episodes. So just take the URL for each of your show notes, plug them into your Google Doc, because then if somebody DMs you on Instagram or they email you and ask a question and one of your episodes could be a really great resource for them and could help with their question, you can quick go into that Google Doc. You can search, because that's the best part about a Google Doc is it's searchable. So you can search for that episode, grab the URL, and send it to that person really quickly and easily. Okay, now let's look at promoting your episodes and what you can do to make things a little bit more streamlined in this area. So make a weekly plan for how you'll promote each of your episodes and then wash, rinse, and repeat. Again, obviously, each week the content's going to be different, but the structure should be the same. So an example of a weekly plan that you could have would be maybe on Tuesday, your new episode comes out. And on that day, you're going to do an Instagram post and you're going to get on your Instagram stories and do a quick 30-second video letting people know that your episode's out and what it's about and how they can listen. And then on Wednesday, you're going to do a reel about a teeny tiny topic from that episode. And then on Thursday, you're going to share an audiogram on your Instagram stories. And on Friday, you're going to include the episode in your weekly newsletter. So bam, that's your weekly plan. Just pick some sort of pattern like that and stick to it so that you can make it really easy on yourself every week to plug in your content and go. And you can still make every episode unique and you can add your own voice, your own creative voice to exactly how you promote each episode. But having those little decisions made already of where you're going to promote the episode each day, it's going to save you a lot of mental energy in the long run. And those are just little decisions that you won't have to make every single week. And if you have a plan for how you're going to promote your episodes every week, then of course you need to actually make the deliverables in terms of graphics that you're probably making on Canva. When it comes to Canva, making templates for your podcast is going to be a lifesaver. And I think it's great to make a few different templates that you can switch out week after week so that you're not posting the exact same thing for every single episode. So make sure that you have a collection of maybe 3 graphics for solo episodes and 3 graphics for guest episodes, and then you can just interchange them. One really great way to save time is if you are creating a thumbnail or a featured image for your show notes page for your podcast, you can also use that as one of your Instagram post images. So take a minute and think about how you could streamline your graphics in those kinds of ways. And then back to that idea of batching, if you're batching out the tasks of your episodes, then as soon as you've made those promotional graphics, go ahead and get them scheduled into some sort of social media scheduler like Later or Tailwind and get a caption written and have that set and done in advance. Okay, the last piece I really wanted to touch on is about booking guests for your shows. And I'm going to be doing a whole episode specifically about booking great guests. And I'll touch a little bit more in depth onto this, but I'll just point out a few key things here. So if you are inviting guests onto your show and you're doing the whole back and forth thing, whether it's on Instagram Messenger or in an email of, hey, when are you available? And then they send you a date and a time and you say, oh, that doesn't work for me. How about this? And then they say, oh, that doesn't work for me. How about this? And you're just doing this like ping pong back and forth, and it can really be a time suck. So if you don't already have a system set up for guest booking, I really recommend that you do that. It's going to save you a lot of time and headache in the long run. So what I use and what a lot of my clients use is Calendly. And on Calendly, if you are doing your interviews on Zoom, you can integrate your Zoom account to your Calendly account, and you can create a new event that is specifically for podcast interviews. You can set up kind of an intake form that guests will fill out when they go to book with you. So they'll pick a time that is available on your calendar, and then they'll fill out the questions. And I recommend asking them to fill things out like their bio, their headshot, any links that they want you to include in the show notes, any key points that they really want to touch on in the episode, anything like that that's going to give you what you need to prepare for the interview, but also the resources that you'll need when you go to sit down to write the show notes so that you're not having to email them weeks after the interview is over when you're sitting down to write the show notes. So you'll have that for them to fill out, and then you can also set up automatic reminders of their interview with you, as well as any kind of guidelines that you want them to follow, like equipment that you want them to use and things like that. So super simple to set up and an absolute must, in my opinion, if you are bringing guests onto your show. All right. So to recap, some of the things that we covered today was to organize your Google Drive or your Dropbox for your episodes, have an episode outline template that you can copy and paste for each episode, set up some sort of project management tool for your podcast, think about batch recording. If you are not already doing this, consider what kind of batching would work for you and the way that you like to work and the way that you like to get things done. Whether that's batching your recording or batching the tasks that come along after the recording is done. Have a set structure that you use for your show notes. Have a weekly plan that you will use for social media for promoting your episodes. Create a set of Canva templates that you can use interchangeably week to week, and set up a workflow to make your guest booking more automated and simple for you. I know that's kind of a lot to think about, so when you're done listening to this, get out a notebook and do a quick brain dump of everything that you do for your podcast episodes, from the planning to producing to promoting. And then take the tips that I shared with you today and tweak them in any way that you need to fit your business and your schedule. And if you're feeling kind of that sense of overwhelm with your podcast, there are two big ways that I can help. One of those is to book a 60-minute strategy call with me. And on that call, I can help you set up systems for your show so that the management piece of it is a lot more streamlined and simple for you. I can set up your guest booking system or anything else that's feeling kind of challenging for you with your show right now. And then, of course, the second way that we can help is through our monthly management packages, where we can help you with anything from editing your audio to writing your show notes to creating your graphics to booking guests for your show. So if you are at a place where you need some help, you can book a free discovery call with me at podcastingforeducators.com/contact. And if there's any other challenges that you're having right now that you would love to hear about on a future podcast episode, just send me a message on Instagram at podcastingforeducators. I always love to hear your ideas and hear what would be helpful for you. I really appreciate you being here with me today and tuning in, and I can't wait to see you next week. If you have any questions or takeaways from this episode, send me a message on Instagram at podcastingforeducators. I'd love to hear from you. All links and resources mentioned can be found in the show notes at podcastingforeducators.com. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Bye for now.